Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 193 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Today's episode is all about the 3 most important legal documents all small business owners need. Now, any of you who just went shaky in your boots going, oh my God, legal documents, I haven't thought about them, I don't know what I need, this is so the podcast episode for you. So thank you as always for lending me your ears today. I know there are lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. If you are enjoying this podcast, then I would love you to take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me. That would be super cool, because I would love to follow you back and cheer you on in this journey we call small business. Don't forget, all the show notes for this podcast can be found at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/193. Before I get started on today's episode though, how did you go with last week's episode? It was all about how to deal with the yes, but questions, those objections we get from potential clients and potential customers on I really like to buy your product or your service, but I really want to do this, but, that's those objections we get prior to them buying from you. So how did you go? We had a bit of a task, a couple of questions to answer, and a little bit of a video type of challenge as well. I'd love to know how you went. I've had some super interesting conversations in DMs and via email with some of you already on this yes, but, would like to learn a little bit more about yours as well. So if you haven't listened to that podcast from last week, which of course was episode 192, then have a listen to that after you've listened to this one. But on to this week, I have a fabo guest for you today, a fabulous guest. Her name is Tracy, and she is a business lawyer who is in the business of delivering confidence to business owners. And she certainly does this. I can't underestimate just what a great chat I had with Tracy. Tracy's business is called TM Solicitor, and you'll find all her links in the show notes if you want to go and follow her or learn more about what she does. Again, the show notes can be found at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/193. This is a fabulous episode, all premised on prevention is better than cure. Having these legal documents in place is so much better than dealing with what will happen if we don't have these legal documents in place. So take a listen to Tracy and all her wisdom around what we are missing as small business owners when it comes to legal documents in our business. Now, just before we begin though, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you notice that this year I've been talking about come and join my Facebook group, Like-Minded Business Owners, to hear all the wonderful speakers that I have lined up in there this year. Well, Tracy was actually one of them. So I've decided to repurpose the Facebook Live that I did inside Like-Minded Business Owners as a podcast because A, I'm like the queen of repurposing your marketing, and B, her insights and her wisdom just needed to be shared further and wider. So please forgive me in this audio podcast with references to Facebook Live, the tech issues I have at the start, asking people to ask questions and so forth. If you can get over the fact that this is actually a repurposed piece of content, that it was a Facebook Live and now it's a podcast, I promise you it is worth listening to regardless of you thinking, well, that doesn't make sense as a podcast. It was just such an important episode I really wanted to share with you, and I will be sharing my other guests as time moves on as well, repurpose them into podcast episodes because again, I'm the queen of repurposing, and B, people who have missed it inside the Facebook group, I feel, could really deal with hearing some of the wisdom that is given inside by these amazing experts. So, without further ado, here's Tracy from TM Solicitor talking all about the legal documents that we need as small business owners.
Hello.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm going very well, thank you. But now my YouTube video is continuing to go. Oh my goodness. Ah!
There's always a tech glitch.
Goodness me. There we go.
There's always a tech glitch. And you know what?
Oh,
Everyone's
why
just
not?
so used to it now. So
Why not?
we're
Why
used
not?
to it.
At least it goes to show that I'm not perfect and, you know, anyone can be as awful at things as I can.
You're hardly awful. It's keeping it real and I love it.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to be talking about this subject. It's not something I've covered inside the group before. And I was, you know, just really happy that you have come along and decided to spend, you know, half an hour or 20 minutes with me. So thank you so much, Trace.
My absolute pleasure. And you know what? I'm not surprised that you haven't covered it in the group because let's call it, legal stuff is really boring and dry and dull most of the time. And no one really gets excited about it. Well, no one except me, really.
Yeah. Which is why you're such a great expert. I actually started my career in law. So I did law for about
Did you?
17 years or so, but property law. So contract law was my specialty. So no idea about small business things other than what I've learned as a small business owner myself. But Trace, for those of you who are watching or watching on replay that don't know much about yourself and your business, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I am a business lawyer. I feel like what best describes my business is to say I'm in the business of delivering confidence for small business owners because that's what I do. So I'm very much focused on working with my clients to support them to work out what they need to do in their business to set themselves up for long-term success so they don't have to call someone like me later when things go wrong. That's my business. So it's very much proactive and it's very much in that business of delivering confidence to achieve real peace of mind. So the reason I do it, though, is because I spent the first 12 years of my career in litigation and dispute resolution. So, oh my gosh, when it comes to what can go wrong in business, honestly, hand on heart, I don't think there's anything I haven't seen.
So you really are. Prevention is better than cure.
Yes, I am. That is my mantra. Absolutely. But only because of what I've seen firsthand. So the sad thing is most of what I saw in all those years in litigation could have been avoided if business owners had have known what they needed to know or if they had have done things differently. And back then, it really was okay for me to be practicing in litigation because it's intense. It's all consuming. You have no life outside of a litigation practice. And I didn't have a partner. I didn't have a family. It was great. It's not like TV. It's not like Suits. It's not like The Good Wife. It's not sexy. It's none of that.
No.
Sad but true. But the intensity is real. So I went off after that and had a family and got a life and did all those great things. And then coming back into the practice of law, I thought, I'm not going to be able to juggle all the things. And I really don't want to have to continue witnessing all of this destruction and this downfall which comes. So I created this business. This really is the preventative side. This is the prevention is better than cure.
Oh, so good. So good. And I love that you've designed a business around your family and around yourself and around your expertise. So I'm sure that alone is, you know, anyone watching the replay is like nodding their heads. Yes, that's what I'm trying to do, or that's what I've done. So that's brilliant. So I guess the premise of today was, you know, what, you know, legal documents or what people, small business owners need to know. So what's the one thing, if there is one thing, or the biggest thing that you had in mind to talk about today?
So what I'm going to share is probably the question I'm asked most often. And I've looked back and really reflected on what do I get asked most often by small business owners when they come to me. And that is, what legal documents do I need? Where do I start? And I have clients come to me saying, oh, Tracy, I know I need to work with you. I've listened to your podcast or I've heard you on someone else's. I know I need to work with you, but I don't know what I need. What do we do?
Yeah.
And I love that. I just love that, because there's no judgment, of course, but it's just that open-mindedness and that willingness to really dive in and understand
You created the curiosity, which is where all great things start.
Yeah, I think so. So really, what I really love to share with your viewers is the 3 most important documents that every small business owner needs. And if you just get that right, they're your foundation documents. You're good to go. So they start with, and there's a reason for them, and I'll share that as well. But when we're talking legal documents, we're thinking of 3 things. So one is we're thinking legal protection. We want to make sure that you are setting yourself up to protect what you're working so damn hard to build. So there's legal protection. Second is legal compliance, because we have a thing called the Australian Consumer Law, and we are all governed by that, even as service providers. So most people think the Australian Consumer Law applies to, you know, Harvey Norman when you've got a faulty toaster and they have to replace it. And it does. But it also applies to service providers. And so we want that protection. We need to comply.
Yep.
And the third thing is professionalism. We have one shot to make a first impression with our clients, and our documents need to be an extension of our business. Professional. Yes. So they're the tangents that I look at when I'm coming in to give this advice, to say these are the 3 things you need. So the first is your business terms and conditions. So that's the agreement or the terms that you work with your clients under. It can be called anything you like. It can be called your client service agreement, your coaching agreement, your design agreement, whatever you like, call it anything. But essentially, it is the document that governs how you work with your clients. The second most important document are your website terms and conditions. They are going to be different for every business, because every website does something different. Products, services, memberships, subscriptions, freebie downloads, all covered in your website T's and C's. And your third one is your privacy policy, because we've got the Privacy Act in Australia, and we're all collecting personal data on our website. Even if it's just signing up to a mailing list, it's still personal data. So we need that. And those 3 documents tick the boxes that I mentioned: legal protection, legal compliance, professionalism. It all starts there. They're your foundational documents. A lot of people say to me, gosh, I've heard you talk about these things called business T's and C's, or, you know, I don't do much on my website, so I don't really think I need it. But let me just explain why you need these 3. This is if you have a website. Of course, if you're one of the very few business owners that I talk to that don't have a website, well, you don't need your website T's and C's, clearly. But that's like 1 in 100 these days. We're living in the digital age. But your business terms and conditions, so the document that you use when you're engaging with a new client, it does so many things. It sets the foundations for your relationship with your clients. We want it to be a good one. You're building a reputation, you're building a business, you're building a reputation. So you want long-term sustainable relationships with your clients. You want positive word of mouth. You don't want things going wrong. It all starts with this document. It sets out what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, what you're going to be paid, how you're going to be paid. It gives you legal protections. It protects you from somebody who discovers that their expectations have been misaligned and they didn't get what they thought they would, and they'd like to sue you, please, for a refund, or because their life wasn't changed and they didn't triple their income and all sorts of things. So it does that. It protects you from that. It deals with refund policies, cancellation policies, rescheduling. Are these pain points? Anything else that's a particular pain point in your business? We deal with it all in there
as well, like setting up the expectations. And especially myself as a business coach, I can coach someone till the cows come home, but if they don't take the action, they're not going to see the results. So my terms and conditions are setting up that in basically these are my expectations of you and your expectations of me, which I think is such an important point in the document, because, you know, people sometimes do come to coaches, not necessarily just me, but even yourself. They come to you and they expect the silver bullet, the absolute answer that's going to take them no effort at all to do, and they're going to get it. But of course, your T's and C's can set up that that's not actually going to happen. You have to do the work.
Exactly right. And if you're in a situation where you have you're offering a particular membership or subscription and you have a no refunds policy, this is a real pain point for so many coaches that I'm seeing at the moment, because people are getting 3 months in and saying, well, actually, I don't like this mastermind, or I don't like this coaching container, I'd like out. But you, of course, have a no refunds policy. Well, you need a little bit more than that. You can't just say you have no refunds policy for the sake of it. If you want it to be able to withstand those types of situations, you need to explain why you don't have a refund, no refund policy, and on what basis. So I'm seeing this a lot at the moment. You need to protect your intellectual property.
Yes.
You know, there are some coaches that say, here's my mastermind. I give you all of this intellectual property. From the moment you register, it's a 12-month commitment, and this is what we deliver. And people come 3 months in and they say, well, now I'd like to leave, please. And the coach says, oh, well, no, because I've given you all my intellectual property.
Yes.
This is where we have the argument. And of course, like all things, it depends on how well your documents are drafted as to how much we can rely on that if we do want to resist those requests. So it's just such an important tool to protect you from these tricky and awkward situations. And of course, one of the most important clauses that I think are in these documents, any types of T's and C's, particularly your business T's and C's, is your dispute resolution clause. Coming from my background as a litigator, we want to avoid a dispute. We want to avoid at all costs going to court. So I'm a litigation lawyer telling you to avoid litigation if you can. It's not the place you want to be.
No. It's not fun.
It's not fun, stressful, time consuming, expensive, all the things. So a really good dispute resolution clause, if drafted properly, provides the parties with an avenue that they have to explore and things they have to do if things do go awry.
Yeah.
And we know that things go wrong. So that's the other reason why you need a really properly tailored, ironclad set of business terms and conditions for your business. Do it properly once, you don't have to do it again. So that's that one. Your website terms and conditions is so important because we all do so much on our website.
Yeah.
We do so much and we share so much and we give so much value, and that needs to be respected and it needs to be protected. And that happens in our website terms and conditions. But again, those expectations, Jen. So if we're offering a freebie download, or if we're offering access to a webinar, if we're selling courses, subscriptions, memberships, what are the terms of those? What are the rules? It all happens here. And your intellectual property, if you're posting original content, we want to make sure that people know that's yours and know you can't copy it. Because that happens too, doesn't it? So we want to make sure.
A lot.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
We need recourse. We need recourse, and we need to think about these things when we're setting these things up. So that's your website terms and conditions, and then your privacy policy. It's one that people say to me, Tracy, do I really need one? Do people really read them? To which I say, well, yes, people like me do. But secondly, it doesn't matter if they don't read them, you still need it. And, you know, more and more people are coming to me saying, gosh, now that I've spoken to you, or now that I've listened to you talk, the first thing I do when I land on a new business's website is I scroll to the bottom and I have a look for the T's and C's and the privacy policy. And when I see it, I know they must know what they're doing. So I go a little bit further. And it's credibility. We're building a reputation.
We're building a trust. So that's a trust little tick for them. That's amazing. Yeah.
It is.
So what about, everything you've said is absolutely brilliant, and I know that if anyone is watching and they've got some questions or they're watching the replay, please use the hashtag replay and feel free to ask your questions as we're going along for sure. But so my audience is kind of split between service-based and retail. So is there anything extra for retailers that they need, even on their website, or, you know, whether it's within their business altogether?
Yes. So when we're talking product-based businesses, and is that what you mean when you say retail, product-based businesses? Yes.
Tangible products as opposed to a membership product or something like that. Yeah.
Sure. So your website terms and conditions get fleshed out really substantially when you're a product-based businesses and you're selling products on your website. So essentially what I've said here in relation to the business terms and conditions that largely apply to service-based businesses, all of that detail will be fleshed out for you in your website terms, because that's your shop terms. That has in there all of your Australian consumer law compliance, your warranties, your refund policy, your returns and refunds, replacement policy. It's all set out in there. Your postage, the options that people have got. What do they do if there's a change of mind? What do you say about that? Legally, you don't have to replace a change of mind, but like all things, there's a legal question and a business question. How do you like to run your business? What we often do, in fact, I get approached a lot to redraft Shopify terms and conditions, because a lot of people like to set up their stores, and Shopify is a functional site or store. I'm not pretending to be tech literate, but I know lots of people use it because it's functional. But the terms and conditions that they provide are bare bones, don't really do all the things. So people often come to me and say, here you go, here's my Shopify terms, but these are all the things I actually do. Can you make this work? And of course we do. Okay. And we flesh it out to make sure that it does work. But then we pull out of there and we often present them separately: returns policy, shipping policy, complaints policy, so that they're really easily accessible for people. The biggest thing, the absolute biggest thing for any business owner selling anything on their website is to understand what is a click wrap set of terms and conditions, and to make sure that you are using them. And people say to me, what on earth is a click wrap? Do you know when you're buying something on a store and you get to the payment page and there's a little box and it says, tick here, by ticking here, I agree to the terms of purchase, or I agree to these terms and conditions, and you have to tick that box before you press pay now? That is the click wrap terms and conditions. That is where people are actually being required to take a positive step. So they're taking a positive action to tick that box and agree to the terms included in that link or in the text box. The click wrap terms and conditions are where the magic happens in terms of your legal protection, because they are the concentrated version of what we have drafted in your website terms and conditions, so the terms of purchase. And by ticking that box, believe it or not, this has been traversed uphill and down dale in the courts. The courts have held, if a consumer is required to tick that box, they are not able later to come back to you and say, oh, but Jen, I'd like a refund on this because I didn't read those terms.
Okay.
And you say no. The courts have held, if the consumer ticks the box, it's too bad, so sad if they didn't read it.
Yeah. Ignorance is not a defense.
No, that's exactly right. But the kicker is, if you don't have that function, if you just simply have a line that says, by proceeding, I have agreed to the terms and conditions, and there's nothing to be ticked.
Yes. Okay.
Or worse, there's nothing. You say nothing.
And you just assume because they're at the bottom of your website that is your compliance.
Correct. If you make that assumption, you would be in error, because the courts have held that if a consumer comes back to you later and says, Jen, we've got an issue, I want a refund or I want a whatever, which is clearly not permissible under your terms, they can say to you, I didn't read it. And you have to entertain that and have that argument. You've got to call me at that point.
Yeah.
That's called browse wrap. So there's click wrap and browse wrap. That's called browse wrap. And it doesn't give you, as the business owner, the protection that you need. You need the tick box. You go and buy something from Apple this afternoon, they've got the tick box. There's a reason for that. You've got to have the tick box. And it's a function once you go into the back end of the websites. The developers, you make a selection. You can choose these things in Kajabi and Spotify, whatever platform it might be, to get that tick box. Yep. Similarly, if you allow bookings on your website, so if you're a service provider and you're allowing someone to book and pay in Acuity, for example, you've got to have the tick box. You've got to have the terms and conditions there. Otherwise, you're not complying, because the consumer law says you as the business owner, whether product-based or service-based, you have to tell consumers what your terms and conditions are prior to them deciding to buy from you. This is how we get around that. This is how we comply. So it's the processes and systems. I love all things processes and systems. Oh my gosh, that is just, love nothing more than a good process and a good system. Everything in my life is systemized. There's a reason that I'm in this business, I think, because I love it so much. So I support my clients not only by saying to them, okay, this is what you need, Yes, we can draft it. Yes, we can work with you. And yes, we can tailor it. It doesn't stop there, because I want to be involved in understanding your processes and systems, because I want to make sure it all works.
Yeah, right.
And if we get it all right from the beginning to the end, that's where your confidence comes in and your peace of mind.
Wow. It's lucky we've got people like you that are passionate about these things, isn't it?
I love it. And like I said, I think I'm one of the only ones, but I really do. I just do. And it sets my soul on fire being able to work with business owners, particularly those that come to me in overwhelm, because I'm so familiar with that myself. And just being able to guide them and just see that transition from this state of overwhelm and confusion, because it's complicated and boring and something you've been putting off, to the all of the stages that we work through to getting to that point where you're just confident. But not only that, you're really proud of the documents that we've created, and you've got that peace of mind because you know how to use them.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's that fallacy of, anyone can start a business who's got a mobile phone these days, but, they don't some people don't treat their business as a business straight away. So they've been in business a little while before they start to think about the legal side, which I'm sure is what you see over and over and over.
Yeah, a lot. Most of my clients, I say most, you'd sort of be looking around that 70, 80%, come to me around that sort of 2 to 4 year mark.
Yes. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I've given it a crack. I didn't know if it was going to be any good, but I thought I don't want to spend too much money on things in case it's no good. But oh gosh, look, it's actually hugely successful. This has got capacity to be something even better. Now, what do we need to do? And we dive in at that point. I do get some clients coming at the very beginning saying, okay, let's now, in a cool, calm and collected way, with all the time in the world, set all of this up beautifully. And of course, delighted, but most are somewhat into the business journey, coming along and saying, all right, I've been really lucky, nothing's gone wrong, nothing's happened, but let's not tempt fate and let's get all this done properly, because this has been in the back of my mind for quite a while. So we do it then.
Beautiful. Tracy, this has been so good. I'm sure that the ladies and gentlemen watching and anyone watching the replay are just going to have lots of questions inside their own little brains as they listen to this. Is there anything else before we wind up that you would like to talk about? Anything that you need to dive into a little bit deeper, or any other, I guess, thing that you see that small business owners need to pay more attention to?
Look, one thing I'd love to say, Jen, and thank you for asking that, is don't be afraid to reach out to a business lawyer, to somebody, to me, and just ask the question, hand up, I don't know what I need, can we get started? Mm-hmm. What I find is business owners put it off because of self-doubt. They think, I should have done it before, now I feel really guilty. I don't know what to ask. I'm sure I'm the only person in the history of the world who's ever left it this late, and now I just feel really uncomfortable. Put all of that aside is what I'd really love to say, because you're not alone, first of all. No question is silly. Everybody's in the same boat. And we don't know what we don't know, but that's okay. You're not supposed to know it all. So reach out and ask the question, because it's your business and you are in control and you are in the driver's seat, and there's so many people in the same position as you. That's what I really want to say, because I do have a lot of people who, when they do reach out to me, they say, I've been agonizing over whether to reach out. So I've sat on it for months and now I'm finally doing it. And they've sat with that awkwardness and that discomfort, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely see that as well. Like, even as a marketing business coach, people have sat on things before they reach out because they're afraid to show me their marketing or show me their strategy or their plan.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's the excitement of helping them from that point onwards, which excites me, and I'm sure that's what excites you. And plus, you've got all these probably horror stories that you can tell them about what happens if they don't do it.
I do. We've got it up. We're up against it as it is with small business owners. The latest statistic is 60% of small businesses fold in the first couple of years. So there's that, but there's also the risk that it only takes one dispute with a client or supplier to bring the whole thing down. It just takes one.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said at the beginning, it's prevention. Prevention is better than the cure. You'd much rather work with me at the beginning, trust me, to get it all done to avoid it, than calling me later to dig you out of this big dark hole that's been created, because that is soul destroying and hideously an expensive process once we start looking at litigation and dispute resolution.
Yes, yes. Absolutely. Been there. Well, we've been there on the other side, on the consumer side, but been there, done that. So 100%. Tracy, this has been so good. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us. If anyone has any questions, they can use the hashtag replay and ask the questions. And I'm sure Tracy will come back and have a look, or I can tag you in it, and we can get in that way. If anyone would like to listen to your podcast or get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Absolutely. So I'll definitely keep an eye on the group for questions. You can find me on my website, which is tmsolicitor.com.au. My podcast, Rise Up in Business, is all available there, but that's also available in the usual platforms. And I spend a lot of time on Instagram, and my handle is @tmsolicitor as well. So lots of resources on the website, lots of info on Instagram, and the podcast also is something that I talk a lot about, questions that people are asking me. So I hope that you find some value there as well.
Yeah, beautiful. And we should probably put those links in the comments below. So people can just click out to those links. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming on. You've just given so much gold. So appreciative of your time today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Jen. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
How good was that? As I said earlier, I just needed to repurpose this one because it was so good. Of the documents Tracy spoke about, though, how many do you have already? What needs creating and what needs updating, and all of that? Like, what stuck out for you as a small business owner that you need, or you have got, but you're like, oh, that's a couple of years old, maybe I need to update it? Like Tracy said at the beginning, she sees so many small business owners that have not worked through these, despite being in business maybe 10 minutes or 10 years. So if that's you, reach out to Tracy or someone that you trust and get these documents done and dusted. Again, prevention is better than cure. Let's continue this chat inside the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. Again, if you haven't joined, then head to Facebook and search Like-Minded Business Owners and join up. And you can listen to some other amazing guests that I have got coming up this year. I'm super excited by some of the guests that are definitely still coming. But also, if you go to videos, you can see the ones that are already being done and you can listen to them. Whether it's Jules about getting free PR, whether it's Annette about, writing great award submissions, or whether it's Linda talking about writing or having short courses inside your business. There's so much in there. Trust me. Go and have a listen to the ones that have been and join so you can listen to the ones that are coming up. Another great reason to join my community. But that's it for another episode of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. I will see you next week for episode 194. Again, we're edging closer to 200. If you've got any suggestions, I would love to hear them, what I should do for episode 200. But in the meantime, if we're not hanging out on social, let's get social on social. You'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Jen Donovan. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peeps, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.